Hi, I am Janet Jamin, the bereavement manager for Faith Hospice.
And I'm Gail Hungeveld, one of the grief counselors here at Faith Hospice.
We want to welcome you to this presentation called Coping with the Holidays, in addition to how COVID-19 has been playing a role. And actually, Gail is going to bring up our PowerPoint presentation, and you'll see that those two squares have moved into two small squares now. So coping with the holidays and offering strategies to help with grief. What is grief? And this is a definition by Dr. Earl Grollman, who is a pioneer in grief, grief and loss and death and dying. He's written several books, Living When a Loved One Has Died, Living with Loss, Healing with Grief. If you're interested, you can always go to the web and look him up, and you will get a list of all his books. But his definition, grief is not a disorder, it's not a disease, and it's not a sign of weakness. It's an emotional, physical, and spiritual necessity, the price you pay for love. The only cure for grief is to grieve. Grief in the holidays. Grief really does affect us physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. And they can happen at different times over a period of time. So it's really important to be prepared for these feelings. So some of the physical symptoms of grief, one, crying, which is very normal. It's normal to cry because we hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people will describe headaches, tension, dry mouth, muscle aches and pains, low energy, sensitivity to noise, even changes in sleeping and eating patterns, and an inability to swallow. That is one that I would encourage people to kind of monitor, because if you are having if you're really having a hard time with those things, that is an area that you may want to speak to your doctor about. And some of the emotional symptoms of grief, loneliness is huge, and then it's compounded by COVID-19 this year. We have a lot of loneliness out there. Anger, people will feel relieved after a loved one dies, basically because you're exhausted, you're tired, and it was emotionally draining. It was something that you watched, and it was emotionally draining for you. So sometimes when you do feel relief, you will move right into feeling guilt, because you think, geez, I shouldn't be feeling like this. But it's really normal to have those feelings of relief. And emotional symptoms of grief, the pain may be more difficult to deal with right now because of the holidays. So it's not uncommon to see dramatic changes in behavior at all. So for example, there may be more outbursts. You may see more outbursts from family members, or negative coping behaviors. And negative coping behaviors can be eating too much, drinking too much, or even using over-the-counter medications too much. So monitor those things. If you find that you're doing some of those things, you might want to talk to a counselor. You might want to talk to one of us. We're here. All you have to do is call us. And if you feel it's more than just needing someone to talk to, then you might want to reach out to your doctor if you're feeling really, really overwhelmed. So just remember, it is a strength to know yourself, and it's a strength to ask for help.
So mental symptoms of grief. Here we have confusion, indecisiveness is a big one. I think there's a lot of decision making this time of year anyway, and I'm hearing from people it's really hard to make decisions. They're feeling overwhelmed by decision making, which kind of goes along with that loss of self-esteem or confidence. People are struggling with not feeling as confident. And Janet, you had a great example of that confusion that you maybe want to share, what that looks like.
Or that and intertwined with feeling crazy.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've had people tell me these stories over the last few years. I hear this quite often, but someone will start want to do some laundry,
Mhm.
and so they get the wash machine going and they step away and they think, oh my goodness, I have these dishes I need to get done. So they start the dishes, and then they just start doing some other things, and then after an hour goes by, they go back into that laundry room, and they've never put the clothes in the wash machine, and it's already gone through the whole cycle, and it makes them feel like they're going crazy,
Mhm.
and they're not. They're just
Right.
It's just part of that grieving process. And grief can make you feel crazy.
I
That's
can.
the thing
Yeah.
about grief.
Yeah.
It really is, because there's no one size fits all when you
Right.
talk about grief.
Right. Yep. Yeah. And so for people who may in their lifetime have been very organized or very confident, when they start to struggle with those things, you're right. They do feel crazy because they think this is not me. This is not how
Mhm.
I normally
Right.
am.
I mean, you can lose your keys.
Yeah.
You
Right.
can
All
be
right.
looking all over for your keys. There are people that are looking for their glasses,
Right.
and after an hour they realize they're on top of their head.
Right. Right. I've had people tell me, I put the milk in the refrigerator, or I put the milk in the cupboard instead of the refrigerator,
Yeah,
or,
yeah,
just
yes.
things like
It
that.
happens. I would say it happens to 98% of people.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I love that you said that because it's a good reminder that it's normal and you're not alone in struggling with that.
Right.
A lot of people are struggling.
Yeah.
So spiritual symptoms of grief. I think one of the big things I was talking with someone this week about is that she has a lot of just big questions that don't have easy answers. Why? Why did this happen? That's a common one. Sometimes people will struggle with anger at God, or they'll tell me that their faith has been deepened or renewed or changed in some way. So just know that all of those responses are very normal. I think there's room to explore those feelings that come up, those questions that come up. I think when people mourn, sometimes they'll tell me, well, that must mean that my faith is weak or that I'm struggling. But I think those things go together, right? You can openly mourn. And to me, that does not mean you've lost your faith in any way. It's just a part of this grief process, asking those questions.
Yeah. And in fact, it may become stronger
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
as as someone begins to really deal with their grief,
Mhm.
that faith can deepen.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think we had a participant in a support group mention this idea of attending a Blue Christmas service, which I think is a wonderful way to tie together both your faith and mourning. It's more of a contemplative service that churches are offering, where people are allowed to mourn openly, express some of the pain and loss that they're experiencing during this time where maybe a Sunday morning Christmas service doesn't feel that it fits you as well. So just consider that as an option. And I think that would be a wonderful thing to explore as a way
Mhm.
to honor your grief during this time.
Yeah, because it's not happy for everyone.
No, no. And I think the
That's
fact that churches have recognized that and offer a different service where people can feel comfortable
Mhm. And
exploring
I
that.
think, I'm sorry, actually, Gail, I think that causes discomfort for people too, because the perception is that we should all be happy during
Right.
the holidays.
Right. And not everyone feels that way.
Right.
Yep, absolutely. So COVID-19 and the holidays, we're going to be talking a little bit here about strategies to cope with that, as we know that COVID-19 has kept us separated from family members. We're finding that the strategies we may use, like gathering with friends, getting a hug, getting together with people, it just isn't working out the same way this year. So many of us are separated and we would want to reach out and we can't, and we're struggling more because the holidays often bring up more painful memories. There's a lot of triggers out there, music, traditions. So just know that we're going to be talking a little bit about how to cope with that. And we have some questions here, Janet, actually, before we talk about coping strategies.
Okay. Oh,
I
good.
got, yeah, I've got a
I like
question here.
questions.
Yeah, this is a
Okay.
good one, I think, because I hear it a lot. I'm getting together with family either virtually or in some way this year, and I'm really worried about becoming emotional. I'm worried about crying in front of my family. It could be that you have children that you're worried about crying in front of, or I've had grandparents tell me I don't want to upset my grandchildren, or I don't want to upset my children, and I feel embarrassed. How do I cope with that? Um,
Yeah, one thing I want to remind people is that crying is normal, and it
mhm,
is not a sign of weakness. So I really want people to understand that crying is not a sign of weakness. If our children or grandchildren see us cry, you're reminding them that you're human, number
right,
one.
right.
And you're also giving them permission to
Mhm,
share their feelings,
mhm.
because they may be feeling down too.
Yeah, yeah,
And you actually, you may be validating their feelings.
yeah.
So that's one thing. The other thing I would say is, if you can kind of pre-plan, if so a good example would be if you are going to someone's home and you get there and you feel emotionally distraught, like, oh, I can cry any moment now. You might want to have a plan ahead of time where maybe you're able to excuse yourself, where you actually can go into another room
Mhm,
and you can be in that room for 10 minutes just to kind of get yourself focused again,
mhm.
and take a moment, time out, more or less, do some deep breathing,
Right.
and when you feel a little bit better, then reemerge.
Mhm.
So sometimes if you can replan or pre-plan, that
Right.
is very helpful. I also encourage people, if you're, again, if you're going to go to someone's home, sometimes people will say, well, I'll pick you up. I
Right.
encourage people to drive themselves,
Right. Yep.
because if the event becomes really overwhelming, you want to have that option of politely excusing yourself
Absolutely.
and being able to go home.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love that. Planning sounds like you're telling people plan ahead if you can. Have a plan for if you are going to a gathering, where can you go during that gathering if you need to take a break? And then that it's okay to cry. It's normal, and modeling emotional expression is actually a good thing for your children and grandchildren. You're showing them, as you said, it's normal, it's okay. We're
Yes,
all feeling it. Of course, we would
absolutely.
have tears. Yeah,
Yes. That modeling is so important,
right.
because, young people really do look at their older relatives,
Absolutely.
and how to deal with things.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. I agree. Okay. So one other question is dealing with traditions. Someone asked, every Thanksgiving, she and her husband would be together, sort of doing a life in review of that year, or maybe years past, and talking about what was good about that year, or what they, memories of trips or whatever it might be. And I think there's some fear on her part of, what do I do with that tradition? It was specific to her and her spouse. And how do I cope with that when we have something we did every year, and this year I just can't partake in that?
Mhm. And that's beautiful, actually.
I know. I love that
Yeah.
tradition.
Um, well, one thing, she could continue that tradition.
Hmm.
You know, she could do that year in review by herself. The thing is, it's not going to be the same
Right.
because her husband's not here, and
Hmm.
that may trigger some emotional reactions.
Hmm.
Or she could begin a new tradition,
Hmm.
something that could honor him, and 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 make her feel good at the same time.
Hmm.
And there are a lot of new traditions out there, and I know we have some
Yeah.
things we're going to talk about, but it's very hard.
Hmm. But I love that you're saying there's no right or wrong. I hear this idea of there's choice, right? You can continue
Yes,
with what you've
always
always done.
right.
You can change your mind. You could try it. And if, as you said, it brings up a strong emotional reaction that feels uncomfortable, try something else. That there's
Yes,
a bit of experimenting in grief to see what fits. and what
Yes,
goes best. Mhm.
yes. Like you wouldn't buy a pair of shoes that didn't fit.
Right, right. Yeah.
So if it's something that doesn't fit for you, then look for other things that
Mhm.
maybe there's something better out there that
Yeah,
fits you.
yeah. No, I
Yep.
love that. So we've got a lot of suggestions here too, which again, as we go through these, I love what Janet said about just knowing it's try one thing. If that doesn't fit, try something else.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's again, there's no right or wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it can be the beginning of a new tradition.
Right,
That can
right.
be exciting. Sorry,
And
I'm still
beautiful.
on the old slide.
No, but it can be a beautiful thing, right? To start something new too,
Yes,
as you said. Hmm.
it can be. So we're going to look at some of these coping strategies. Uh, Coping with loss and being separated from family during the holidays can feel absolutely devastating. So we want to look at some things that can help.
Hmm.
So plant a tree. You can plant a tree in memory of your loved one. And right now, I see a lot of places that have real trees.
Hmm.
So you actually could buy a real tree. And so after Christmas, you wouldn't have to throw it out. You
Right.
actually could take that tree and plant it.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
you could buy like a Christmas tree that you can later plant. I think
Yep.
that's kind
I
of
love
nice.
that idea. Hmm.
Yeah. Or you could buy a star for your loved one and name that star after your person. I think that's beautiful too.
That is
To
beautiful.
star. Yeah. Make a donation to your loved one's favorite charity in their honor.
Hmm.
You're giving to someone else. You know,
Absolutely.
I think giving to others at this time can always make us feel better.
Hmm.
Sending Christmas cards to family and friends, particularly during this time of COVID, just
Right.
reaching
Hmm.
out to people that they're not forgotten. I think that's so important.
Hmm.
Listen to your favorite music. That's beautiful too. I love music. Find ways to laugh, share funny
Yeah.
memories with family and friends. I'm sure that people have stories that they have never heard.
Sure.
And you could be on a Zoom meeting and you could be, laughing and really having a good time.
Hmm.
This next one, I
Hmm.
really love this next one. Preserve your loved one's handwriting by framing notes or recipes, or by having something they've written engraved onto jewelry. I love this. In fact, I'll just share a really quick story here. This is this when we were putting this presentation together, this is something that we came across, and I thought, oh my gosh, I love this because I've come across some of my mother's recipes.
Oh,
Mhm. And
yeah.
some of you know that I lost my mom a couple years ago, and I found an old cookie recipe in her handwriting.
Oh,
Yeah, I know. I just loved it.
sweet.
It just warmed my heart. So I
Hmm.
found a place online. I think it's called Canvasstry, and I was able to take the pitch. I took a picture of the recipe, which I was able to send to them,
Oh,
and
great.
they were able to take that and actually put it on a hand towel,
Oh,
and it
how
was
fun.
beautiful.
Oh, how fun. So you can
Yes,
give that out as gifts or keep one for yourself.
I actually purchased one for myself, and I purchased a couple more for I have a couple sisters, and it's going to be a Christmas gift.
Oh, I love that, Janet. That is a beautiful idea. And I think I've seen you can do it on all kinds of things, dish towels, platters,
Mhm.
jewelry. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a great idea. That
yes.
handwriting.
It was beautiful. It
Mhm.
really warmed my heart to see my mother's
Yeah.
writing.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it was really lovely. Anyway, share favorite holiday recipes. That's a good one.
Hmm.
Wear their favorite perfume or cologne,
Yeah.
or spray it into the air. I know I work with a lot of people, and they tell me that they do that.
Yep.
It makes
Absolutely.
them feel comfortable.
Mhm.
It makes them feel that that person is around.
Yep.
So, because it reminds you that they're near. They're
Mhm.
near to your heart.
Mhm.
Of course, they're always going to be near to your heart.
Absolutely.
Or watch your loved one's favorite movie or television show, and you can do
Mhm.
that in honor of them.
Yep, absolutely.
That could be a new tradition,
Mhm.
you know? Oh, create a shadow box using personal items that once belonged to your loved one or mementos from places you visited together. I think that's a nice one for
I love
children
that
too.
one. Oh, absolutely.
Mhm. They lost grandpa or
Mhm.
grandma, and they want some memories. I
Mhm.
think this is just a beautiful thing that they can do. Set a place setting for your loved one, including a photo or memento if desired.
Mhm.
Bake your family's favorite cookies, mail them out. I love that. That brings back great memories. That actually brings back college memories.
Yeah, sure.
When I had a mother who would send me cookies, which was
Yes.
just so sweet.
Mhm. I
But
love that one.
yeah, or send Christmas cards with a note. Just, again, staying connected in various ways is so important. Writing a letter.
Oh, yeah, I love that. We don't do that anymore, so what a
No,
special way to connect with
yeah,
someone.
yeah. Purchase Christmas gifts online that can be delivered so that you don't have to go out
Mhm.
during this time. And again, doing something for others.
Mhm.
When we do something for others, it makes us feel better. And it could be a neighbor. It could
Right.
be that you take some cookies to your next door neighbor. Maybe you
Mhm.
have a neighbor that just lives alone
Mhm.
and
Sure.
thinking about them.
Yeah, I love that. I think you're right. It does help us in our grief to feel better when we can do something for someone else.
Yeah.
Okay, so using technology. Oh, we know in this era of COVID, we've had to become creative as we are today in doing this video instead of meeting in person. But I think we're lucky to have all these free apps, free ways to stay connected, FaceTime, Zoom calls. And we know that the videos can never replace a one-on-one or in-person connection with someone. That doesn't replace a warm hug, but I still think there's something important about seeing faces and
Mhm.
connecting with people that way. So use those things, ask questions. We're happy to help you figure out how to use Zoom as well.
Yeah.
um, it's just a good way to stay connected this year.
Yes, and along with seeing faces, we
Mhm.
get to hear the voice too,
Exactly.
not just the phone, but
Yeah,
we get to see and hear.
yeah. So laughter, as you said, sharing stories you maybe haven't heard before. That's some of the ideas here too, right? Be on a
Yes,
Zoom call, share those stories, watch people open presents. I know families that have had dinner together via Zoom. I love this idea of creating a shared document where if you have someone who's very tech savvy in your family, you can invite people via email to all share great stories. Someone I know created a little booklet that way. She had people submit stories through Facebook and she printed them all out. Stuff she never knew about her dad. So what a fun way to have some memories there. And the same thing with photos. You can have people submit photos to a shared album, and you may find some pictures that you haven't seen before of your loved one, which is special.
I love that Google
I
document
do
one.
too.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
such a fun way to learn things you might not have known.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, I think we have another question here yet before we
Yes,
go
we
on to
do.
action planning. Did you get
What
one?
I got one
Okay.
that just came up here. How do I prepare myself? Let me see. How do I prepare myself for disappointment?
Mm,
Ooh,
yeah, it's a big one.
that is a big one. Um, well, here's the thing. I think it's really important at this time for people to lower the
Mhm,
expectations.
mhm, mhm,
The more expectations, the more disappointment. So, no expectations, no
mhm,
disappointment.
mhm,
So, listen to that concept. No expectations, no disappointments. So you can prepare, but by not having these expectations that are kind of out of this world,
Mhm. Mhm.
because
Sure.
you're really going to set yourself up
Mhm.
for disappointment.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's actually the best thing that I can tell you.
Mhm.
Uh, because holidays, we do get disappointed at
I do.
holidays.
Mhm.
They come very quickly.
Mhm.
We're with our family, we have a great time, and then they're gone.
Yeah.
And then we're
Yeah.
alone again.
Yep.
And we feel empty again.
Mhm. Yeah, it is a hard time of year
It's
for
a
sure.
very hard time.
Yep.
So, really, I'd encourage you not to have the expectations that are out of reach,
Mhm. Yeah. Yep.
and if you can do it, just have none.
Yeah. I love that. It's really just asking yourself, just starting to think, what are my expectations? Do I have expectations of others? And what you're saying is the more you can lower those expectations for this year, the less you struggle with that big sense of
Yeah.
disappointment.
In fact, you're almost modeling that. Oh, sorry. You're
Nope.
almost modeling that again.
Okay.
We talked about modeling
Right.
behavior.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
so if you're modeling that we don't have to have expectations, then you're giving other people in your family also that they don't have to have expectations to make everything perfect
Right.
for everyone.
Right. And that communication is so important because people might feel relieved about that you don't expect X, Y, and Z or whatever it might be. So I love that idea of just communicating with your family,
Yeah. So
talking
I
about it.
just, yeah, I'm just going to add some. So you could have a son or daughter and they're totally worried about you and they don't know what to do.
Mhm.
So if you've lowering your expectations, then you're also allowing them to lower theirs because they want you to be okay.
Right. Right. Yep.
And they're going to be completely worried. They're going to want to make everything perfect. And it doesn't have to be like that.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. So planning, that kind of goes along with expectations and communicating. There's no right or wrong way. I went to a conference once and the presenter had her brother passed away on Christmas Day. And she said,
Oh,
how do she said, I struggled for years with how to cope with that. So it didn't overtake my entire Christmas day. And so she planned. She planned every Christmas morning. She would spend 2 hours with her family baking brownies and
mm,
eating those in memory of her brother. And then the rest of the day, she had that intentional time to focus on her grief and that loss, but then it didn't take over the rest of her day.
mhm.
So I love that talking to your family, planning in advance as much as you can, but then also allowing yourself, the compassion and grace to change your mind midstream. You
Yes.
may have planned on a call with someone and you decide at the last minute you can't do it. That's okay. Just understanding and giving yourself that space to change your mind if you need to.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to add to, I think it's communication, communication,
Mhm,
communication.
mhm. Absolutely, 100%. Right, because, she was saying too that by doing that with her family and communicating her need, again, they could intentionally spend time on her grief, that it didn't take over the rest of her day in that way.
Mhm. So self-care, allow feelings to be expressed. We were just talking about that.
Yeah,
Communication, communication, communication.
yes, yep.
Because holidays really magnify the grief,
Mhm,
and it is normal to feel that sorrow and also to feel joy.
absolutely.
It's very wavy. So remember, it's going to be very wavy, very up and down. And you can give yourself permission to be angry. It's
Mhm,
okay. We get angry.
mhm.
It's
It's
normal.
normal. Yep.
Yep. Share concerns, apprehensions, feelings with a friend or a family member. Get
Mhm.
enough rest.
Yeah,
I cannot say that enough. Get enough rest.
yep.
Holidays are just emotionally exhausting.
Mhm.
And then you add grief on top of it.
Oh, right. Yep.
And it's a complete double whammy.
Mhm.
So, get enough rest because again, the holidays are emotionally and physically draining.
Absolutely.
This I love.
I love this.
Find a safe person. Everyone needs a safe person. What's a safe person? Safe person is someone that you can call anytime,
Mhm,
someone that accepts you as you are. This person doesn't want to fix you because you don't need to be fixed.
mhm.
And they don't want to help you feel better, especially if you just want to talk and want someone to
Exactly.
listen.
Yep.
So it's someone that really is genuinely interested in you and listens to you.
Mhm.
They're honored that you trust them with your pain, with those some of those deep emotional feelings you have that they share with
Mhm.
you. I mean,
Mhm.
that's intimate.
It is intimate. And we
Yeah.
know that sharing those feelings takes away some of that shame that then we often put on ourselves.
Yes, yes. So, this, it can keep you sane and it can keep you grounded. So,
Mhm.
you might want to think about who's my safe person.
Mhm.
That's, it's something to really start thinking about. Who is my safe person?
Absolutely.
Be kind to yourself. Oh, we can get in such self-deprecating behavior where we're beating ourselves up day in and day
Mhm.
out
Mhm.
because we should have and we could have. But it's really important to be kind to ourselves. So
Mhm.
pay attention to what you need and then honor those needs. Avoid comparing yourself to others because we all grieve differently.
Yep.
And again, let go of those shoulds and release those critical thoughts.
Mhm. So difficult. It seems like people will say, I'm so much harder on myself now. I don't understand why the grief brings that out in me. But I think it's like you said, a lot of the shoulds, coulds, shoulda, coulda, wouldas, we need to release and let those go.
Mhm, mhm. For some reason, Gail, I don't know if it's something as a society, I think it's so much easier for us to be critical of ourselves
Oh,
than
for sure.
to look at all the good things about ourselves.
Yeah. Or I will say to someone, how would you talk to a friend? What would you say to a friend? Can you say that same thing to yourself? Why is it's so easy to say to you something loving and kind.
Mhm.
We need to practice turning that back on ourselves.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
So backsliding, I love how you talk about backsliding, Janet. And you just mentioned too that grief is wavy. It comes in waves. It's 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. So maybe you want to share a little bit about. I love how you talk about that concept of backsliding.
Yeah, I think it's I think when people are feeling good, they're in uh they're in a phase of restoration. They feel great. They're moving forward and it's like, "Oh, I feel good," They're
Yeah.
socializing with friends, they're getting out in good weather, and they're basically remembering better times.
Hmm.
And then they hit a wall
Yeah. Yeah.
and they start going backwards. And when that happens, it's really uncomfortable. It's frightening.
Hmm.
And basically, it's because you're reminded of your loss.
Yeah. Right.
The thing is, you kind of have to hit that wall,
Hmm.
bounce back before you can push further again.
Hmm.
So it's not an unusual thing, and
Hmm.
it happens to most people. I'm not going to say it happens to everyone, but it happens
Sure.
with a majority of people.
Yeah. And I love how you say, the more people can practice recognizing that, the easier it is to not judge yourself or, why am I doing this or what's wrong with me? What have I done or what am I not doing? But
Mhm.
that is it can be a very normal part of this process for a lot of people. So when you can
Yes.
name it and recognize that it's happening, then you can let go of some of that self-judgment.
Yes.
Hmm.
The other thing is the first time it happens, I think, is the most frightening time
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
you've never experienced it.
Yeah.
So it can happen again. And
Yes.
if it does, you know what it is, you recognize it.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be you don't have to be fearful
Right.
and you don't have to spend as much time on it.
Yeah. Yeah. right? Those critical thinking, we can let that go much
Yes,
faster.
yes.
Oh, this is a good
Self-care.
one. Hard work. Yeah. What do you think about that? Oh, so true.
It is, grief is a lot of hard work.
Mhm.
So it's okay to set limits on what you will or will not do during the holidays. You don't have to do the same things that you've done every year.
No,
You don't have to have the big dinner.
right.
If maybe your daughter or son, maybe someone else can do the big dinner this year,
Right.
if you're having one, okay?
Right. Yeah.
But you certainly don't have to, uh, do all the cooking or do all the baking. You can change it up a little bit
Mhm.
for the holidays. So you can set those limits on what you want to do. But again, grief is very hard, is hard work.
Mhm.
It's not easy. We don't have a magic wand. I wish we did.
No.
I wish we did, because I would love to take the pain
Mhm.
away.
Yeah.
But people really have to get to a space where they decide, I'm going to work on this
That's right. Yep. I'm walking
because,
through it.
yes, because I want to become better.
Yes. Yep.
So, yeah, you again, try not to be too hard on yourselves.
Mhm.
Recognize that this time is a hard time.
Right.
Give yourself permission to have fun. It's
Yes. Yes.
okay. You don't have to feel guilty about having some fun. You need it. It's good for your soul.
Mhm. Mhm.
Enjoy yourself. It is not a betrayal to your loved
That's
one.
right. We need that laughter. As you said, it's so healing, good for our soul. I love that phrase.
Mhm. Yes, it is. Laughter, again, laughter and joy are not disrespectful.
Right. Right.
And laughter actually will kick in some of those good feeling endorphins.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it causes you to feel good.
Yeah.
So some of those other symptoms that we talked about of achy
Yep.
joints,
Tension.
tension, laughter can help reduce some of that stuff.
Yeah.
Even exercise and
Yeah.
activity can do the same thing. Going outside, and I mean, it could just be taking a walk around the block. It
Mhm.
could be walking your dog if you have one, but doing something physical can be really, really helpful during this time.
Mhm.
And there are other things too.
Yeah, I think this is just, as you said, these are just some tools that we're offering. It's not the be all end all of all the ideas.
Right. And could you just hold that slide
Yeah,
there?
which
The
one?
No, the references. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Yep. Sure.
So you can see these references. Help for the holidays. That's the Doogie Center, National Center for Grieving Children and Families. That's a place that there's the websites on there. You can go to that if you want to find additional information on grief or help for the holidays. And then even the next one, families coping with loss at the holiday season should honor the memory of their loved one and look to the future. You could go to that website. So we have references that we have used for this presentation, but you can also follow up and look at some of these.
Mhm.
And I think, Gail, you had a couple too that you were.
Yeah, I do. We have, so whatsyourgrief.com, just spelled out what's your grief, all one word, has fantastic articles, hundreds of them, not just on coping with grief at the holidays, but other ideas for coping. Great wealth of information. They also have some little booklets on their website. They have great stuff for kids.
Mhm.
So that's a good one. I think the Center for Grief and Loss by Dr. Alan Wolfelt also has articles, but he has some great books on coping with grief at the
Yes.
holidays. That
Yes.
would be good to check out.
Yes. And I just want to add with Dr. Wolfett, you cannot go wrong. Okay.
No, I agree.
I'm
Yep.
going to tell you, you cannot go wrong. If you want more information or on grief and loss, and you're looking for books or resources,
He's fantastic.
yeah, you
Yeah.
cannot go wrong.
Yeah. And it's for the full, from kids, all the way spouse, parent, loss. I mean, he has very detailed
Yes,
resources for every type of loss.
yes.
And then Gary Rowe has a book, Surviving the Holidays Without You. that is great. It's small, it's thin, it's not overwhelming with too much information, but I love Gary Rowe's style of writing. It's just very easy to read, don't you think?
It is, because I think we both read it at the same time,
Yeah,
actually,
yeah,
and I just loved it. And
yeah,
I
it's a great
remember
book.
we talked a little bit about that book and thought, this is a really good book.
Yeah, it's excellent. So yeah, there's a lot of other ideas, things that we can look at and share and explore.
Yeah,
Not
we're back to the big screen.
yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you for sharing those, Gail.
Mhm, absolutely.
Yeah, I also wanted to just say before we close out here, if you're struggling, if
Mhm.
even if you just have, a question, maybe there's a concern, please call us.
Mhm.
Please call us. We're here. We'll
Mhm.
get back with you. Our number is for the Faith Hospice Bereavement Department is 616-235-5122. Again, that's 616-235-5122. Just leave us a message. We will get back with you and we'll figure out what's going on.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, I love
So
that.
yeah, please give us a call if you're struggling. So we just wanted to thank you again for joining us, and wish blessings to all of you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.